Welcome to Khanversations. I'm your host Muqtadar Khan, and today I want to talk to you about the changes that are taking place in Iran. It did come as a big shock to Donald Trump that the Iranians did not show up in Islamabad. J.D. Vance's Air Force Two was ready to take off. It remained on the tarmac for several hours as Pakistan desperately trying to mediate between Iran and the United States, tried to convince the Iranians to come for the second round of discussions, but the Iranians stuck to their stance, saying that as long as the United States continues to blockade the Strait of Hormuz, they have nothing to talk about with the Americans. Plus, they have said that the Americans had not shown any good faith intention to continue with this dialogue. They point to certain actions taken by Donald Trump, which completely violate the spirit of the ceasefire. So, for example, as a result of the original ceasefire that was discussed and negotiated in Islamabad, the Iranians had opened the Strait of Hormuz, and then Donald Trump, out of the blue, without waiting for the end of the ceasefire, simply escalated, and his escalations were twofold. Number one, he blockaded the Strait of Hormuz, and then he basically took siege of one of the Iranian ships, which was sailing from Iran to China with. And then recently they have captured another Iranian tanker. So in retaliation with that, the Iranians then shut down the Strait of Hormuz, and we now have a stalemate. They refused to come to the dialogue. Donald Trump kept talking about how the Iranians had nearly accepted all the conditions. They just had to fine-tune and iron out some minor differences, and so J.D. Vance was going to go there. And it's amazing how out of touch Donald Trump seems to be with his own negotiations. He says one thing and we see something else happening. He tweeted that the Iranians were in complete agreement. They were accepting his offer, and it turns out that they are not. Anyway, Donald Trump also praised the new political order in Iran, saying the regime change had taken place. We have got rid of all the people who were bad guys, and now the people who are in charge in Iran are more reasonable and more moderate. And he liked these people. And of course, he says absolutely stupid things. You have to be like an andbhakta, a blind follower of MAGA to be able to believe this absolute rubbish. He says that, oh, the Iranians were going to select him as the supreme leader of Iran. I mean, where does he get? Why don't people just laugh it off? It just shows how sycophantic his supporters and others are. This is not a democracy. If this was a democracy, his entire cabinet should have laughed at him and said, don't say such stupid shit, Mr. President. It erodes the confidence in your capabilities and your cognitive capabilities among the people. No, the Iranians are not going to select you as the supreme leader of their religious beliefs. Anyway, he doesn't even know what the role of the Wilayat al-Faqih performs in Iran, as it was obvious from that particular comment. But nevertheless, there is a very, very interesting article in the New York Times today, which talks about a new era and a new leadership. The generals who are running Iran. This has been done by their UN bureau chief, and she interviewed 23 people inside Iran and people who are very, very prominent in their positions. Some of them are very close even to the current leaders in Iran, and so it was very interesting to see that what she found, and I'm going to share her findings with you in a short while. But I do want to say that, yes, there has been a change in leadership. Clearly, there is no doubt about it that there is a change in leadership in Iran as a result of the decapitation strategy that was adopted by Israel and the United States. They got a very fortunate opportunity to essentially kill a very large amount of Iranian leadership. And as a result of that, what has happened is that it is the Israelis and the Americans who have replaced the older guard with a newer guard. So this is what has happened in Iran. very prominent moderate leaders. Iran's regime was never monolithic, in spite of the fact that you had Ayatollah Khomeini, who was like the supreme leader. He was in charge of everything, foreign policy, defense policy. Most of the decisions were made by Ali Khamenei for decades, literally, for more than 3 decades. But Iran was never monolithic. There were always moderates and there were always hardliners, and there was always this tension. So if you go back and read scholarship, literature, discussions, even op-eds to books about Iran's domestic politics, the key element always was the debate between the pragmatists, the liberals, and conservatives, or between the hardliners and the moderates, people who wanted to negotiate and people who did not want to negotiate, and civilians versus the generals. So there was always this tension in the Iranian government. It is only the ignorant and the prejudiced who assume that it was a monolithic regime. But what has happened was that by killing some of the really prominent people who are moderates, like Ali Larijani, who have long experience of negotiating with Americans, and whose presence would have given the Iranians more confidence in negotiating with America, because they had a person who was a person who had a long history of negotiating successfully with Americans. So in that sense, it is important to recognize that by killing a lot of moderates, Donald Trump and Netanyahu have essentially empowered the radicals. And so the new regime is essentially led by the hardliners from IRGC. So while IRGC was an important, shall we say, I call it the sword and the shield of the Islamic Republic, now they are everything. And the IRGC generals have basically taken over the defense policy, the national security, the foreign policy, the negotiations, and they are pushing moderates like Masoud Pezeshkian, the heart surgeon who is the president of Iran, to focus on domestic issues such as fuel and food and other issues of reconstruction and rebuilding, but not be involved. So the generals of IRGC are now pushing aside people like Sayyid Abbas Araghchi, who is the foreign minister, and Masoud Pezeshkian, who is the president of Iran. And these generals have now, and basically the hardliners have now taken over the government. They are the ones who are making the decision. And I think that the decision to not go for the second round of dialogue in Islamabad clearly shows that these generals, so Wahidi, in Ahmed Wahidi, for example, that these generals have taken charge. So the New York Times article tells a very interesting story. I don't know how accurate these stories are. During wartime, New York Times is not to be trusted. And if Israel is involved, don't trust New York Times at all. You know, during the Gaza war, they were using Israeli intelligence people as journalists. This is the New York Times. They hired former Israeli intelligence people to be reporters for New York Times. So it was completely embedded by Israeli intelligence. So when it comes to the Middle East, when it comes to Iran, and if Israel is involved in any way, we should be very, very careful about what the New York Times is saying. In fact, Donald Trump is true to some extent. The American media the mainstream media has been completely compromised. There's so much money there. So for example, CBS was bought over by a very pro-Israeli billionaire, Larry Ellison, and he installed an Israel Firster as the CEO of that. And so the news quality there has really gone down. It is pure MAGA, pure pro-Israeli propaganda. So the news in America is collapsing. That is why channels such as mine, YouTube channels who are challenging the mainstream narrative are very, very important. If there was no YouTube, I can guarantee you this whole world would have become basically run by billionaires and pro-Israeli billionaires in the United States. So basically, what is there in the New York Times article should be taken with a pinch of salt, but nevertheless, there must be some substance in it. So this gentleman, Ghali Baf, who is the Speaker of the Parliament, he is part of the negotiating team along with Abbas Araghchi. So I think when these two were coming, Abbas Araghchi and Ghali Baf, you could say that the voice of the generals was Ghali Baf and the voice of the moderates was Sayyid Abbas Araghchi, and now there is going to be no dialogue. So what is going to happen going forward? I think that there is going to be a stalemate. Donald Trump is very clearly signaling that he does not want to start another military war. General Adams, who is the new director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, the U.S. Department of War's intelligence agency, which is actually apparently in size and budget bigger than the CIA. So the DIA is bigger than the CIA. So the head of DIA basically testified to the Congress recently, and in which he argued that the Iranians retain tremendous military capabilities still in spite of degradation of their assets through usage as well as through bombardment. They still have a very strong and robust stockpile of ballistic missiles and literally a large stockpile of one-way drones. So they feel that the Iranians can still cause a lot of damage to U.S. forces as well as to U.S. allies in the region if military action is again, basically resumed by Donald Trump. So Donald Trump doesn't have an appetite, especially after he has seen what has happened to UAE. UAE literally begging for, can you imagine UAE, which is so proud of its wealth and prosperity, is now begging for financial assistance from the United States as a result of the damages that Iran has done to its economy. So what is really happening is that he's realized that Donald Trump has realized that there is no popular support for this war at home. Less than 25% people support the war. I mean, those are the stupid people who believe when Donald Trump said stupid shit, such as the Iranians were thinking of choosing me as their supreme leader, that the Iranians will surrender. And these are the people who believe Netanyahu when he comes and repeatedly lies. So, for example, they do not have a capacity to learn. People like Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio, Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, they do not have the capacity to learn. Everybody knows that Netanyahu tricked America into going into this war by giving wrong intelligence. Donald Trump chose to believe Netanyahu rather than his own intelligence agencies about the possibility of an uprising in Iran. Where is that uprising in Iran? Donald Trump says the army is destroyed, the navy is destroyed, the air force is destroyed, everything is destroyed in Iran. Great. So why aren't the Iranians rising up? There should be nobody there to suppress them now. Everything is destroyed, isn't it? So if Iran's all military capabilities are destroyed, then why don't you just go and take the Strait of Hormuz? You don't even need the US. UAE should be able to take it, right? With Iran having nothing. So we have a president who says all kinds of stupid shit here, and we have followers who believe this. It's the same in most of these right-wing countries. Their leaders say stupid things, and it is the hatred and the frustration of these right-wing people that they want to believe their leaders, even though the reason tells them that this is not the case. And so this MAGA crowd believes Trump and supports him. So it is, we are heading towards a disaster from an economic point of view because Donald Trump is stuck. He doesn't want to continue with the military warfare. It's very clear. He had an option. He could have done that when the ceasefire. He could have at least had a symbolic strike, like sent 100 jets to bomb something. Now America and Israel like to kill civilians. They like to bomb schools and universities and power plants. Like on a daily basis, they love to commit war crimes. Because there is no such thing as international law. The Europeans give lip service. Not one European country has the guts to stand by international law and impose sanctions. They still continue to have relations with Israel in spite of everything that has happened. So nobody really respects international law. India talks a lot of bullshit about being the voice of the global south, but it is just shut up on all war crimes. Not one word from the Indian Prime Minister. He has absolutely, his 56-inch chest has shrunk to 26 inches. Yesterday, Donald Trump reposted a document in which India is referred to as a hellhole. This is Michael Savage, a right-wing commentator, a conservative right-wing commentator, called Indians all kinds of names, and it's posted. And the Indian Ministry of External Affairs answer was, Randhir, whatever his name, Jaiswal, had to say was, "Oh, we have noticed it. Yeah, we have taken note of that." Great. The whole world has taken note of the fact that Donald Trump has reposted a post which calls India a hellhole, and the Indians have nothing to say. So it's like this, that everybody seems to be just giving lip service to values and to international law, and no one is actually staking, because they are just so scared of America's power and the Israeli power to challenge them. And then, of course, countries like India, who are dependent on them, who, like India, feels that if Israel had not supported India, India would have lost the wars to Pakistan. So they're so grateful that Israel supported India in its wars against Pakistan, that they are willing to completely compromise their values and even their stature in the international arena to support them. So anyway, the quick takeaways from what is happening in Iran changes is that the generals have taken over in Iran, without doubt. The moderates have been marginalized. The hardliners are in place. Forget about regime change. Everything that Netanyahu and Trump did not like about the previous Iranian government, that has become bigger and more pronounced in the new Iranian government. So that is where we are at the moment. And it appears to me that we are now further away from any possible diplomatic resolution unless and until, I think, Donald Trump backs off by basically ending the blockade on the Strait of Hormuz and allowing Iranian ships to go. And then perhaps Iran will open the Strait of Hormuz to other ships. And then something else is also going to happen, because if this doesn't happen, Donald Trump thinks he has some control over Iran. No, he keeps saying that Iran is losing $500 million a day. No, they're not losing $500 million a day. Iran doesn't export $180 billion worth of, $182.75 billion worth of oil. Iran exports about $40 billion worth of it. So if he keeps the whole thing all over, it's just 10% of Iran's GDP. So if Iran is blockaded for an entire year, they will just lose $40 billion out of $400 billion, which is their GDP. So it's not as big a damage as Donald Trump thinks. In fact, there might be bigger damage to the global economy as well as to the US economy. The inflation is high. In Seattle, the gas prices have now exceeded $5.5. Here in Delaware, they are over $4 across the board in the US. It's having an inflationary impact on all other aspects. It will slow down US GDP growth. I think that the damage to the US economic growth might be more, because of this inflation, will be more than the actual damage in terms of dollar value that the US has done to Iran. But what is clearly happening is that the US power is diminishing. People are realizing more and more that the United States, first they fought with the Taliban for 20 years, the poorest country in the world, the most backward people on earth are the Afghan Taliban. And the US lost to them. They could not achieve their political goals. They finally had to tuck the tail between their legs and leave Kabul. And now the Taliban are back in charge. And then the US tried that in Iraq and failed, now tried in Iran and failed. So increasingly, you will see that the aura of American invincibility and power is completely disappearing. But the power of Iran has increased more, because until now, people were just afraid of Iranian proxies such as Hezbollah and Houthis and the Shia militias in Iraq. But now the Gulf countries in the region have seen what Iran can do militarily. It can stand up to two nuclear powers, Israel and the US, for 55 days now, and not surrender, but to the point extend to end to such an extent that we might see a catastrophic impact on the global economy. Given all that, I think that Iran is becoming a major power in the region, and the United States' power in the Middle East is diminishing. So thank you for watching Khanversations. If you've not subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share it with your socio-political network. I will take your questions and your comments in a second. But meanwhile, I do want to make this announcement that on Sunday, on the April 26th at 8 p.m. India time, 7:30 p.m. Pakistan time, 10:30 a.m. New York time, I will be hosting a Zoom conference for members only. And if you come to the channel on Saturday, and if you look at these, this is how the channel looks. If you are in India, my global channel is also called Khanversations with Muqtadar Khan. So if you look at these little tabs here, home, videos, shorts, live, playlists. So go to posts and click the post, and there will be a post which will have the members only Zoom link. And if you are a member of Khanversations, by that time you'll be able to access that link and join the conference. We usually talk for an hour or so. This time I'm going to open by talking about some of the closed door meetings I had in Italy and discussions I've had with other experts, Europeans, while I was in Rome. And then I will take all your questions on whatever topics you have, and we will listen to you and we will talk about it. So I want to thank Sumit for his gift. Sir, India की करे ट्रम्प से तो लड़ नहीं सकते, उसको इग्नोर करना में ही ठीक है, फ़ायदा है. See, the thing is, the first thing is that there seems to be, like, look at Sumit's comment, and it's very condescending towards Pakistan, and while acknowledging the desperation of the Indian government. Modi, when he was doing silly things like taking selfies with Giorgia Meloni, the whole country in India was celebrating. Look, the Italian Prime Minister took a selfie with Modi. Look, the Australian Prime Minister said, you are a hot shot or a big shot or something to Modi. Oh, look, Macron came on the red carpet, broke the protocol to hug Modi. You know, all these rubbish things were attributed to Modi's magic and Modi hai to mumkin hai, and things like that were big deal for Indians, because it proved to them that India is a great civilization, India is a great country, because Joe Biden was hugging Modi or asking him for his autograph. Now the same thing is happening to Pakistan, and they are basically upset and jealous about it. The whole Indian media, I'm watching it, I'm so amused. Look, Pakistan has not become a big economy. Pakistan has not become a very powerful country. The only change that has happened to Pakistan is that it has become very central to the global discussions, and they are doing a great job in moderation and negotiating and balancing. They are doing a great job of balancing their relations with the Gulf countries, especially Saudi Arabia and Qatar, with Iran and with the US. Their diplomacy is definitely outperforming India's diplomacy. Whereas India is just full of shit, and I would go to Israel and say, we stand with Israel. Great. The moment you said you stand with Israel, you're not a neutral party anymore. And you're doing nothing to help Israel anyway. And you have relations with UAE. You're not doing anything to help UAE either. At least Pakistan has posted 13,000 soldiers in Saudi Arabia. So Yes, Modi can't stand up, but the problem is Modi has used foreign policy to fool Indians into thinking that because of him, India has become a great country. Not because India is a great country, but because Modi is the Prime Minister of India. You know, I used to say jokingly, we should transfer Modi to New Zealand and see if New Zealand will become a great country. No, India is primarily very important because right now, because of its population size, 1.4 billion people, it's a huge market. So if people want to sell India, even if you want to sell India a $1 pen, you can make $1.4 billion. So that is why India has become important. Plus, there is a huge talent and human resources in India, and that's why India is important, not because Modi is the Prime Minister of India. But Indians want to think like that. They want to rather give credit to Modi than to give to India. And so, in order to save Modi's image, they are sacrificing this. Trump is making fun of Modi all the time, humiliating India, called India a hellhole, called India's economy a dead economy, all kinds of things. Modi said nothing. Why is he not saying anything? He can also get back and say, well, you're not correct. Look, you could at least disagree with him. You don't have to insult Trump back. So that is my problem with Prime Minister Modi. He is letting people humiliate India. Oh, this is such a beautiful ghazal. Anyway, thank you very much for that. Where do you see this power? What stand up is Iran doing? Neither is US or Israel interested in setting foot in Iran. Its petrol dollar is the only concern. Decimating Gaza, Iran, Lebanon. Look, Iran has become definitely more powerful. The fact that it has stood up to this. I mean, this is what Modi is afraid of, right? Modi is afraid to say anything against Donald Trump or even criticize Israel for committing a genocide, for God's sake. India talks about values and hamare sanskar and our principles. This is what Modi is afraid of being on the wrong side. But the Iranians are not. That alone tells you the civilizational strength of Iran as compared to the hollowness of India. That it itself is weak. I know all Indians, while they are bragging, or they know in their heart that Modi is not standing up to Trump and making India look smaller and smaller and smaller. Look at the latest article in the Atlantic. Look at the debates in India itself. But Iran is standing up, and I'm telling you that if they hang on there, they might come out with a control on the Strait of Hormuz, which will be with over 150 ships a day with $2 million. They will be making $300 million a day. And there will be no restructuring of the supply chain of oil and gas from the Gulf, because otherwise you'll have to buy from the US or Russia. And it takes longer for it to come. The cost of transportation is much higher if you do that. And then the supply is also a matter of issues, right? So, plus India already, for countries like India and Japan and China, they're heavily invested in the Gulf. So they can't just break away from the Gulf countries. And if everybody breaks away from the Gulf countries, then there are 10 million Indians who are working in the Gulf. If the Gulf economies collapse, all of them will lose their jobs. There are no jobs in India. Just come back home and join gangs like Bajrang Dal and then go around killing minorities. That's all these people will have to do. They will have no jobs. Can you imagine losing 10 million jobs? 1 crore jobs? Huge amount of remittances that will be lost. And this is not just for India. Egypt too is suffering big time because of this. There's no traffic. The traffic through Suez Canal has reduced. And if they close the gate Bab al-Mandab, if there's another attack on Iran, that's what the Iranians will do. They'll get the Houthis to start shooting and block the Red Sea. Then Egypt's economy goes down the drain. Plus remittances will cut down. A lot of Egyptians work in the Gulf. A lot of Pakistanis work in the Gulf. They will lose their jobs. A lot of Bangladeshis work in the Gulf. A lot of Filipinos work in the Gulf. All of them will begin to lose their jobs if the economies in the Gulf begins to collapse. And remember, Iran has been completely isolated for the last 30, 40 years. They're not as integrated into the global economy as the rest of the world is. So the relative impact on Iran's economy, except for the loss of revenues from the oil, will be far less compared to the impact on, say, Dubai. Who's going to buy expensive apartments in Dubai now, knowing fully well that any time a drone can come and strike you? So we are moving into a very, very dangerous territory. So anyway, thank you for watching Khanversations. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and please, for those of you who are members, don't forget to join the Zoom conference on Sunday. Take care. Bye.